What do you do with your old Arcade1Up cabinet? If you were able to build the Arcade1Up cabinet, you could do this. Welcome back to Jimmy's Toys and Games. Today we're going to be talking about an easy Arcade1Up mod that anyone could do, definitely for beginners. We are in the car and we're about to go pick up my very first Arcade1Up cabinet. I'm traveling down the highway, going not too terribly far away from where we live, to pick up a Galaga machine. This is a first generation Arcade1Up. We made it to the location. We picked up the machine. Here's some footage of in the back of the car, and we set it up and started playing Galaga a little bit. Got a few good games in there, guys. I like Galaga. It's one of my favorite old arcade games. Personally, the arcade games I played the most were the ones from the 90s. NFL Blitz, NBA Jam, Cruising the World. That era, mid-90s, is the one that I would hang out and play those games. And so yeah, those are probably my favorite overall arcade things. And yes, there is an NBA Jam cabinet, which I honestly would like to get, but I don't have room for a bunch of these things. And this one was very inexpensive from Facebook Marketplace. First time I've ever bought anything from Facebook Marketplace. I'm not a big fan of Facebook in general, but just happened to log on there one night and see this was available. I'm like, hey, is it still there? Yeah, okay, well, I'll buy it. And so the next day I went and picked it up. My initial thought here was I wanted to upgrade it. And so I ordered some components from Amazon to upgrade the machine to something more interesting than just a Galaga machine. I mean, Galaga and Galaxian are from 79 and 82, I think. And it's just those two games. That's all you can do. I bought the Switch fighting stick for Arcade1Up cabinet. I believe that is by Intec Gaming. And they also had another monitor mount where you could rotate the monitor from being, in this case, a vertical monitor to a horizontal monitor. And so it took a few days for those to come in. I think I had the cabinet almost a week by that time. And so I'd played Galaga a pretty decent amount, and I was okay with opening this up to some other possibilities. And so I took the cabinet almost completely apart, not quite. I had a little trouble with one little part of it, just didn't want to seem to come loose. I have a few different videos here of me working on the cabinet in various stages. So ultimately, I removed the original control panel, I removed the plexiglass, I removed the monitor, I removed the mount for the monitor, and then I replaced that mount with a new mount that was horizontal, put in the monitor, put in the new plexiglass, and then attached this monitor to a new PCB board, which is what allows this monitor to be connected to something else now. And so now the monitor has a way for me to plug in an HDMI cable, and the Switch fighting stick is set up to connect to the Nintendo Switch. Now there are other accessories you can get, little dongles, where this device can connect to other devices. I have not purchased those. I don't know that I will. I mean, I guess that's a possible upgrade in the future, maybe. So the device is upgraded to the new controls, and it now can play Switch games. I do have a few of the arcade type games. I have the Namco Museum that features several of those old, like early 80s kind of arcade games. So in the Namco Museum, I've got PAC-Man, I've got Galaga, Dig Dug, the Tower of Juega, Sky Kid, Rolling Thunder, Galaga 88, Splatterhouse, Tank Force, Rolling Thunder 2, and Pac-Man Versus, which I do believe requires other people. That's a decent selection of old arcade games, and I like that Galaga is included. Capcom's arcade stadiums, where they give you a free game. And the first one was 1943, which is one of the few shoot 'em ups that I really like. That's probably my favorite. And I've got a couple other collections that have arcade style games in them, like the Contra collection has the arcade versions of Contra, and then some of the Sega Ages stuff. I mean, I have a few of those old school things, but then I also have things like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is a fighting game that kind of lends itself to the arcade experience. And so that is one of the ones I've played the most on the Arcade1Up machine since I've done my upgrades, and I've liked that pretty well. I've tried out a few other things. I've played a little Sonic. I've played Double Dragon 4. Just with the way the cabinet is set up, you don't have all of the buttons because you're missing the D-pad and the right stick, and so you can't do everything that you would need to do. Like for those Capcom games, it wants a right stick press, like to click it to insert a coin. You can't do that on the Arcade1Up control panel that I have. So you'd have to have another controller connected. That is another downside of this setup. You turn the arcade cabinet on, it brings the screen on and the powers up the control deck, but you do have to turn on the Nintendo Switch separately, either by pressing the little button on top or having a controller handy to open it up like a Pro Controller, or some of the other third-party controllers will allow you to wake up the Switch. There's a few of them. Like I have a Power A Nintendo Switch Zelda controller that will wake up the Switch, which is unusual for most third-party controllers. But overall, yeah, I've enjoyed just messing around with this as a fun little project. I was thinking of going to like Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever, and purchasing materials and just trying to make my own little cabinet. But with the way things are with inflation and building materials last few years, I didn't think it was cost effective to try to go get wood or whatever other material to do that. So just to have a small footprint and a relatively low price, I spent under $200 total on the arcade and the upgrade. So, I mean, I think that's pretty good investment for me. I overall try to get things on a sale, on a clearance, on a deal, if I can help it. I don't really like going out paying full price for things. Like these new Arcade1Up machines cost $600-700. I'm never going to pay that. I'm just not. It's not going to happen. So I would love to know if you have an Arcade1Up machine, or if you got bored with one and you decided to upgrade it, if you did something like this, or if you put RetroPie, whatever, inside of it. What have you done with your Arcade1Up? Because I know these started coming out like 4 years ago, so I'm definitely late to the party on these. And locally, it feels like to me that the Walmarts and the Targets, at least in my area, have stopped carrying these systems. And maybe because of the price increases, they just weren't selling them. And I know they seem to go on clearance. Online, I've seen some really cheap clearance prices. I've never found that personally. The cheapest clearance price I've seen in person was $200 for the Miss Pac-Man 40th anniversary. I think it had 10 games on it. It was a fun little project, but it's a nice addition to my collection. If you'd like to see some of my other videos about some recent video game topics, you might want to check out this video right here on the left.